Welcome back to NatureLabs' coverage of the Ontario provincial election. We've switched screens here to talk about an issue that a lot of you have been bringing up, which is why do we have to trudge out to a ballot box to vote, especially in the month of February, especially in a province that's been walloped by winter storm after winter storm, especially in Orillia, Ontario, where you've got so much snow apparently you could bury an adult giraffe. Well, it's a good question, and it's a question the Globe and Mail today asked of Elections Ontario and Elections Canada about whether electronic voting might be possible in the future. After all, in Ontario, electronic voting will likely be occurring in upcoming municipal elections. So why couldn't we do this provincially or even federally? The answer from both Elections Ontario and Elections Canada: electronic voting probably won't happen at that level in our lifetime, which is a very large time frame, especially considering how young that we are, or at least you are. The reason that we don't do electronic voting and likely will never do electronic voting is quite simple. It's about security. You've probably been hearing about the issues in the news, issues that we've been featuring in your weekly roundups about foreign interference. That's countries like Russia, China, India, and increasingly potentially even the United States, who want to interfere in our elections to maybe get candidates elected who will have a more favorable view of those countries and their foreign policy objectives. The issue, of course, is if you have electronic voting, it's more susceptible to threats. There's a chance that more people could impact the integrity of the vote. They could hack into the system. They could change the numbers. They could change the outcomes potentially. That's the fear. And probably even on a bigger scale, it's not just the fear that these countries will actually change elections and who wins a government or forms government, but it's really the perception that these elections could be impacted. Increasingly in this sort of post-truth, misinformation world where we live in, the echo chambers that we often reside in on social media, people are becoming more and more skeptical, are losing faith more and more often in our democratic institutions. If you had an electronic vote, because there's the perception that those votes could be impacted, tampered with, changed, the big real reason that our elections services don't want to go that direction is because they're fearful people will perceive the vote to be threatened, and thus they will perceive the outcomes of elections to be inaccurate. The ballot, the paper ballot, it's basically foolproof. And for that reason, provincial and federal election officials want to stick with the old ballot box routine, even if it means going out in giraffe-high snow. And yes, that will probably impact the voter turnout in tonight's Ontario election, but regardless, it's still the safest way to ensure the integrity of the vote, to ensure the right government that the people wanted to vote into power actually forms government, and of course, most importantly, that Ontario voters have faith in the system and have faith that their votes are being properly counted and are not being twisted and manipulated by foreign actors, potentially with bad objectives.